Hello and welcome to today's webinar on effectively managing your e-permitting process with ArcGIS and Cityworks PLL. My name is Rob Santos. I'm the Public Works Director at Esri Canada, and I'm responsible for the delivery of public works and municipal products and services to our customers across the country. With me today are a couple of our business partner colleagues from Cityworks, Becky Tamashowski and Kara Haslam. Becky and Kara, can you please introduce yourselves?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. As Rob mentioned, my name is Becky Tamashowski. I'm the Executive Vice President of Vision and Product Engineering at Cityworks, and I've been with the company almost 18 years this summer. And I oversee our product management, our stakeholders teams, and our documentation side. And Kara is actually one of the subject matter experts on my team.
Great, thanks, Becky. For those of you who haven't attended one of our webinars, we're recording the session and we'll email you the recording along with the slides after the webinar. If you have any questions about the content we're presenting today, please use the Q&A panel. Be sure to choose Ask All Panelists, type your questions in the box, and then click Send. If you're unable to see the Q&A panel, click the three dots at the bottom of your screen, and then the Q&A button to send your questions. We'll respond to your questions through this panel during the presentation. So if there's time remaining at the end of the webinar, we'll conduct a question and answer period directly after the software demonstration. But we'll also be sure to also allow follow up with any unanswered inquiries from today as well. So today's session will focus on demonstrating the major feature functions, reporting, and analytics of the Cityworks Permitting, Land and License software, or we call PLL for short. And it's specifically around a typical building permit lifecycle. We'll begin with a short introduction to PLL, followed by a software demonstration, and then we'll close with a brief Q&A session with time permitting. So before we get into the software demonstration, and I'll pass it over to Becky and Kara for that, I would like to provide a brief history of Esri Canada's business relationship with Cityworks. In 2001, we became the Canadian sole distributor of the Cityworks software in Canada. So the first client was Wireberry, who is now Enercare. Enercare is still using the Cityworks software. Essex County in Ontario, and shortly followed by the City of Surrey in BC, became clients number 2 and number 3 respectively. In 2006, the Public Works practice was established for the continued implementation and support of Cityworks. Our Public Works group now has over 23 full-time consultants supporting implementations. We also have a dedicated technical support team assisting over 65 customers across the country. So the following slide is just a sampling of our Cityworks users of various sizes, under 10,000 in population and to over 1 million, such as York Region in Ontario. I'll now hand it over to Becky to provide a short introduction to the Cityworks software. Over to you, Becky.
Thank you, Rob. Next slide, please. Thank you. So Cityworks is based in Salt Lake City, Utah. We've been around since 1986 as a company. Cityworks itself has been in place since 1996. And over that time, as the company has expanded and grown, we've added in more functionality, which is actually what brought to the growth of Cityworks PLL. As part of the basis for our software design, we've gone ahead and from the beginning, our software has been designed to work directly off the Esri platform. And as part of that growth and that commitment to the Esri side, we are only one of 15 global Esri Platinum partners in the world, and that enables a lot of communication and support from Esri to Cityworks. So through that process, we're able to have direct access to staff and developers, product managers, to ensure that the Cityworks functionality is making the most, taking the most advantage as possible of the Esri platform, as we expand the services and offerings to our client base. And so as part of that, the Cityworks customers around the globe are all facing very similar situations in the sense that everybody's working from a variety of infrastructure and also at the same time working to maintain the services that they're providing directly built off of that infrastructure as part of their municipalities and those requirements. And so as part of that process, Cityworks is a natural fit in terms of the way that it leverages the ArcGIS content, whether it be from a AGOL feature service, the SDGeo database. That information is explained and delivered natively within Cityworks to allow organizations to make the most real-time and up-to-date decisions as possible in relation to their operations. And so as part of that, we do have two sides essentially of the application that work together as a unified system, but we are able to license them separately depending on the needs of the organization. So one side of the application is Cityworks AMS, and this actually focuses on our asset management and work management strategies. There are several native applications or activities within Cityworks AMS, and a typical workflow may initiate from a public inquiry or a service request. And this could be coming in directly from a citizen that's calling into the organization, or it could be coming in through Esri's crowdsource reporter application, and then tying from there into Cityworks as a means of enabling citizen engagement within the application. From there, we have inspections to manage the process of investigation in the field, determine the cause of the issue that may have been what the resident reported or the citizen reported, and then determine a plan of action as a follow-up. From there, a work order can be initiated and taking place in the field. And this is really the vehicle where we start to capture resource information in relation to equipment, labor, and material that's part of that process. And then from there, we have a series of analytical tools that allow organizations to really dive into the data and provide a spatial context to understand where there are the greatest needs that need to be met, and how to go through the process of delivering those in the most efficient manner. Similarly, in parallel, we have Cityworks PLL for permits, land, and licensing. And on this side of the application, we are able to go through the process for permit applications, code enforcement, business licensing. There's a workflow tool that manages the plan review process, captures the data, determines fee calculations based off the data and permit type in relation to what the city ordinances may be that are captured as part of that workflow. Inspections are managed through PLL also to ensure the documentation process in terms of the certification for the permit applications and verifying the case data that's being entered as part of that application process and review. And then similarly, we provide an analytical portion as well to start to review that data, aggregate that data, and really start to make more sound business decisions, and being able to look at that not only in the context of the data itself, but as well from a spatial view. And the way that we manage this through the GIS is that with Cityworks, there's really only one asset inventory or database repository for your asset information, and that's ArcGIS. That's the only location for your asset data. From there, Cityworks resides in a separate database, but we link to the ArcGIS data, which means that there's no replication of the asset data. There's one sole inventory source, and everybody in the organization is viewing the same version of the data in real time. But as we've gone through that process and identified as a GIS-centric platform, there are several characteristics that really make up what Cityworks is. And as I mentioned, no redundancy and the updates are right there as part of it. Also the configuration. Because Cityworks is relying directly on ArcGIS for the asset repository, it means that organizations are able to model their data in any manner which makes the most sense for their workflows, for their data types. And it means that the software can also be applied to any type of assets. There isn't a limit in terms of whether or not there is a Cityworks module or a Cityworks specific workflow for an application. If there's anything that's within the GIS, Cityworks is the software that can be laid over top. And then over time, as the web map has become one of the items that's more predominant through the Esri ecosystem, that's something that we've also incorporated support for as well within Cityworks. So as we're going through that process, all the web map data is available to Cityworks, which also enables us to start to leverage Esri's identity, which from there carries into the ability to use that as a mechanism for authentication within Cityworks. So from the web map, we're able to support single sign-on and have that be the means in which organizations authenticate into Cityworks, whether it be from their AGOL or from their portal identity. And with that, we've been able to also expand the functionality that we leverage within Cityworks as part of extension of the Esri data, and that's part of what we'll get into today. Looking at that information in terms of how it's pulling in within our native apps, and then also into applications such as Insights for ArcGIS and ArcGIS Online. And really what this really ties into is the fact that so many organizations are dealing with the same consequences and issues in terms of striving for better constituent engagement and the tools that they can enable not only internally to manage that engagement process, but what they're putting forward and is front-facing for their citizens. And that's part of what we'll be showing as well today with the Cityworks portal. And from there, the record keeping and transparency. So many organizations are capturing that information as part of their workflow, but in terms of providing it in a means that's easy for the record keeping and reporting process, transparency to share back out to the public, and reporting at a national level, having that ability to easily query, search, and provide it in a concise manner is really what we're striving to accomplish for our clients. And then as well from the analytics and decision side. So the collection of all that data is crucial, but then what comes from that data? How can that data be queried and visualized and represented in a means that's meaningful and can really be leveraged to help to make smarter decisions in terms of being more efficient and operationally agile as an organization? And that's what Cityworks strives to help our organizations accomplish. And so with that, we'll be moving into the software demonstration portion of today's webinar. And for that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Kara Haslam.
Good morning. Okay, let me just figure out how to share my screen. And okay. Oh, sorry. All right, so this, so I'm going to go ahead and just show you a demonstration so you can get an idea of how the permitting process actually works in the software. So this is Cityworks Respond, and this is kind of like the main full suite of functionality, and I'm just going to go ahead and open a permit that has been previously created. So this is the main screen of the permit in Cityworks Respond, and as we can see, we've got different areas related to different information that's important to the process of the permit as it goes through its life cycle. The main panel would be kind of like overall case-related information that's specific to everything related to this case, like what type of case is it, what case number does it have, who created it, when was it created, expiration date, and all that sort of information. Another panel that's really important is the address or GIS panel. This is where your GIS information would be attached to the permit so that you can go in and see, okay, we have spatial information on this permit. We also have what's called case data or data group. That would be where the information that you need to track specifically to your organization is set up and configured, and then you can go in and enter that information there. So if I just look at my case data, I can see, okay, this one, it's a residential single-family house being built, and it's 2,000 square feet. Here's the estimated cost of construction, the estimated start value, and then if I want to put in any information, I can track and change that. Now case data is very important because you can change your fees based on the case data. So up here in the right, where it's showing our fee panel, now all these fees have already been paid because this process is in the middle of its, or sorry, this permit is in the middle of its process. But if for example, the fees were unpaid and we wanted to change some of the data in the data group, like, oh, it's actually going to be 2,200 square feet, and maybe that changes the fee. You change that case data to 2,200 square feet, and that fee is automatically going to update. So we have the ability to track fees and make them dynamic so that they're not just set in stone. And of course, the most important part of a permit is going to be this workflow panel. This is the main engine that drives the whole process of the permit. This is where you set up the tasks or the steps that need to be done for the permit to move through its different phases. So like a single family building, it looks like we have an application check just to make sure that they have submitted all their information as we need. And then we also have in this workflow, after it's gone through the application check, it's got a review plan where it's been through the different review, sorry, the word I'm thinking of, let's see, the different review departments, they can cover their reviews and say, okay, this is good to go, this is good to go. Now this permit, it's been through all of its reviews, they've all been approved, and now that I'm the permit, I'm responsible for the permit, so I can say, okay, we have all the reviews, it's all done, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to issue this permit. And that means the next couple tasks open up, so the inspections were not available to be worked with before that issue phase, but now that the issue has been complete and that permit has been issued, the inspections are available to be worked with. So what that means is now let's pretend I'm the contractor. I got an email saying, okay, your permit is issued, I can go out and I can start doing my work. So I go out as the contractor and I start doing my work, and I come back and I'm like, okay, the work is complete or nearing complete and I'm ready to schedule an inspection. As a contractor, I will log into the Cityworks public access portal, which you can see right here, and I'm going to go to that permit that was now issued. I'm going to click on it. Oops, looks like I have to log in again. It's been sitting for a while. Okay, so here I am logging into the public portal, and I'll click on this permit so I can see the updated status, and I can say, oh yeah, we're definitely at the issue phase, and now I would like to schedule some inspections. I'm going to come up here and click Schedule Inspections. Now this is going to show me all of the inspections that are available to be scheduled for this permit. So if I click on this inspection footing, it's going to give me the available date and times that I can schedule it. Or same with the plumbing. Now if you notice, the footing inspection has a specific time, whereas if I click on this plumbing, it has a time block. It just says afternoon. So based on the different types of inspections, you can say, okay, this one to have a specific time slot so they can sign up for a specific time, or we just want them all to go in kind of a bucket, and then we can figure out what order and when they're doing them later. So I'm going to go ahead and schedule this plumbing inspection for the afternoon. And I can see it's been scheduled here. So now that I'm done and the contractor has scheduled his inspection, I'm going to go ahead and refresh this permit and say, okay, now that I'm there we go. Now that I've moving through the workflow, I can see that inspection, that plumbing inspection that has been scheduled through the public access portal, I can see, okay, yeah, it's been done, it's been inspected, and now it can be taken out to the field and the inspectors can finish their inspection. Okay, and I believe Becky was going to show the analytics, so can we pass it off to Becky? Thank you.
And I apologize. Normally, the intended workflow we were planning on showing did anticipate showing our native apps as well, but Kara was having some technical difficulties being able to mirror the native apps onto her screen. So we weren't able to go through and actually show that, but with the Cityworks suite, in addition to the front-facing portal application that we showed that manages the application process and that communication with the residents and contractors as part of the workflows, we also have a field application for the native apps. And so that works on both iOS and Android, and it allows many of those inspections and tasks to be submitted out to the field crews to take place as part of the inspection process and have that information captured and fed back to the back office and the main organization for review and to allow that application and permitting process to proceed forward. But we were having some technical difficulties with the Wi-Fi access in Kara's location, and as such, it wasn't the mirroring of the native apps from the phone to the device was not working to be projected. And so I apologize for that. We wanted to show as that workflow process continues and you get to the actual collection from the field through the back office review that continues on, the fee and capture process, the final review and the issuance of the permit within the application, all that data that's being captured throughout all those steps. All those fields that are being captured, the data that's being captured, the fees, the interactions in terms of the case types that are being submitted, and the turnaround time for being able to take that information out and share it out to the organizations as well, can all be monitored through Insights for ArcGIS. So with Insights for ArcGIS, Cityworks has created a number of workbooks and cards that allow the data from the application to be captured through and actually projected into view for analysis, spatial querying, and it's taking place in a means that's updated and live and dynamic. As many of you are already aware of Insights for ArcGIS, that information is able to be taken in from the Cityworks database and consumed here. At this point, it's able to be shared out with other users within the organization, as well as into front-facing data. So one of the initiatives that Cityworks has currently underway with Esri is in relation to ArcGIS Hub. And through there, we've been able to access the performance initiatives. And through there, that's an initiative that can be embedded within an organization's ArcGIS Hub site. And the information from Cityworks can be shared there as well. And that can be projected either through Operations Dashboard or through Insights for ArcGIS to allow status information on a day-to-day basis, real-time, in terms of the number of open permits, the types of permits that are currently being submitted, information such as that. But then with Insights, we can start to get into more detailed information and look at that breakdown, as well as looking at some of the performance metrics, such as the amount of time that it typically takes from the point of application of a permit until the issuance, how long items typically maintain in the review process from the city side. And that information can then be shared out as pages within ArcGIS Hub and updated dynamically for interaction with the public. And so I just want to go through and show these are the workbooks that we've created with Cityworks. These are available to all of our clients. This information already comes with the workbooks and cards pre-configured, and at that point it's really just a matter of hooking it up to your database for Cityworks and populating your data and pulling it in, and immediately the visualization is available to you. And so just as I kind of navigate through some of these cards, you can see some of the information here. And because Insights for ArcGIS is dynamic, as I go through the selection process and start to perhaps zero in on the exact locations for code enforcement violations, information starts to select and filter and highlight across the other cards and the map interface as well. And this is part of the nature of Insights for ArcGIS and part of the out-of-the-box functionality that's provided. But we can go through and query information, whether it be related to a dashboard view or starting to look at the information in relation to specific applicants, types of applicants, applicants who maybe have had more than one application over the course of the year, as well as being able to look at the revenue that's coming into the organization as well from the permitting process, the tender type, the type of fees and the amount, and how that's varied over time as well. As well, we provide information that starts to look at the type of fees, again, the revenue associated with the fees, number of fee types, and the summation of how that revenue starts to play in over the course of the year. And as I showed on the first dashboard chart, all this information is interactive and dynamic for the organization. And this is really where we start to provide that analysis side of it. So with Cityworks, we have several out-of-the-box reporting tools, but really the true power of the spatial analysis gives more context to that data and starts to provide a better way to associate and identify trends within the organization, whether it be related to business licensing, code enforcement, or as new developments taking place, and we can start to identify based off of parcel types and zoning information, availability of development space, and starting to aggregate some of that information in a way to start to be more proactive and looking at in terms of expecting where the next areas will be in terms of heat mapping and identifying the resources to be in place to support that as an organization continues to grow and change and evolve. And this is where Cityworks comes into play with our permitting application, from the origination of that application through the portal, the processing to the back office, the review process, capture and verification in the field, completion, and then the spatial and data analysis through Insights for ArcGIS. And with that, I'll hand things back over to Rob.
Great, thanks very much, Becky. We have a couple of questions that we'll go over, and I'll hand it over to the appropriate presenter here to answer. So when a customer schedules an inspection through the online portal, will the PLL admin receive an email notification that a request for inspection has been made? So Becky, can you answer that question?
They will. So with Cityworks, we have essentially a workflow manager that comes into play, and it allows us to go through and identify as different statuses are populated throughout the workflow process. Different notifications are shot off to specific individuals, with that information is being captured back. As well, that interface also provides to the portal the ability to interact, and we're also providing additional functionality, not in this next release, but in the release after that, to allow embedded direct messaging as well, so that residents and contractors who are interacting through the portal have the ability to also communicate back to the back office city staff while they're in the portal and going through the process. But currently today, yes, Rob, the simple answer to that question is yes. As they go through that process, back office staff are notified and that information is made available to them to make sure that everything continues on through the workflow process.
Okay, great. So another question here, can Insight link to financial software such as VATM where fees come in? Becky?
Yes, and that's actually one of the things I think is the best thing about Insights for ArcGIS. And Rob, you can speak to this as well. But with Insights for ArcGIS, you're not limited to a single data set, which really allows us to pull in information from multiple data sources to really get a richer view of what's taking place within the organization as we're starting to filter over different slices of data, whether it be from the spatial side in terms of looking at our GIS data and the Cityworks data overlaid there, but also then starting to bring information in from those financial systems or perhaps a customer information system as well, and to get a more complex view of what's actually taking place.
That's correct, Becky. So there are different ways that Insights could access external information. One is through a database connection that you define. So database could be SQL Server or Oracle. Another approach is to also link to file-based formats such as Excel and so on. But and Cityworks database is able to be connected to directly as well. So you would have live data of external data sets, GIS data sets, and also Cityworks data as well in the Insights product. So we have another question here. How would the permit applicant apply for the permit through Cityworks, or would the permit intake technician have to accept an application and input the information manually into Cityworks?
So actually, as I start to answer this question, Kara, could you please pull up what the public access portal looks like for the beginning of the application process? And I'll start to speak to that as well. So with Cityworks PLL, we have the opportunity for organizations to have the front-facing portal as a means of residents and contractors to go online and start that application process. Likewise, we also have clients where Cityworks PLL is in essentially like an assessor's office or auditor's office, and they're able to come in and interact directly with staff who perhaps are doing a manual intake process. And then also as a third option, we've had clients who have essentially provided the Cityworks portal here, but through a kiosk in their offices. So people would still come in and physically enter the building to start the application process, but it might not be interacting directly with city staff. And instead, there's kiosks available where they can go ahead and do the process themselves. And so as you can see here, Kara has the public access portal. And you have the ability to provide the configuration yourself and identify what type of case type you actually want to have provided here through this portal. And then to also manage what information you expect to be captured, if there are attachments that are required to be included as part of the application process, terms and conditions of acceptance, disclaimers. And you can see here as Kara's going through the application for a residential permit for building construction, it's stepping through each of the criteria for the types of case data that need to be captured as part of that application process. And then as we're going through the first step, just looking at the location and description, that map information is allowing us to go through and immediately specify what's taking place. And there's a lot of updates that are actually taking place to the map that we include here as part of that portal. So things such as allowing redlining and sketching of the work area that's to be included as part of the construction process. And just more interaction with the map data itself. And actually at this point right here, this is part of that case data that Kara mentioned when she was looking at Cityworks Respond, where this information is being captured to start to do the fee calculation and look at parts of the workflow that may be captured as well based off of the size of the data that's coming in from the case data. So there are a few different options there. And again, many times what's provided is a hybrid by our clients. So they'll offer up the portal for specific case types and then maybe for more complex types that require more maybe submitted deposits are being made. It just depends on the preferences of the organization. They may direct staff or residents and applicants to come in directly to the physical building to do the application process. And it looks like, so I think we've taken care of that one then.
All right, super. So some more questions here. Does the submission process allow owners or contractors to submit digital drawings of buildings, either as PDF or even better as DWG files? And this could also relate to the public access that we've just demonstrated.
Yes, it does allow for the submission, and we're also enhancing it to specify required attachments so that the application cannot actually be processed online unless all the required and necessary attachments are included.
So another question here, for fees and payments, is there transactions captured through Cityworks or a third-party vendor?
So Cityworks itself does not capture the transactions just because there's so much security-sensitive information, such as card numbers and account numbers and such. So we do work with PayPal and Authorize.net, and we're also expanding the transaction process vendors that we're working with.
Okay. Another question here. When inspectors are on site and pass an inspection, is there an option for an email to be sent to the permit holder to inform them that the inspection is passed?
Yes, actually there is. And so through the email notifications within Cityworks, again, so with that workflow manager that we have, as we go through that process and we change statuses and pass and fail various inspections and tasks that are associated there, the workflow engine can use the email notification configuration to make sure that those email updates are being sent back to those applicants and other people that are just part of the permit process. So whether it be a contractor that the applicant wants to have notified or the applicant themselves, that can be configured through the email notifications.
Okay. Here's a question related to inspection scheduling. Can individuals be assigned to inspections, or does it go to an inspection pool?
So we can actually go through and specify the various trades, inspection trades that different inspectors have for certification processes. So you can specify which ones specifically receive facilities inspections, buildings inspections, HVAC, electrical, and based off of their certification or designation within Cityworks, that identifies which inspectors will receive the notification that the inspection is being assigned. And you can also specify that at the workflow template level. So it may be as part of that configuration for the workflow, you can specify who is to be assigned for each of those inspection types.
Okay.
And that information is actually taken into account when Kara was showing that inspection scheduling process for the available dates and times. And it's all coming off of the inspectors who have been designated in the configuration to be receiving that type of inspection. And then it's looking at their calendar availability in terms of what days of the week, what hours they currently work, and when they're currently available based off their other workload at the time.
Okay. So here's a question about users of PLL for building permits. Are you able to provide a municipality that is currently using PLL for building permits? In Ontario, Kawartha Lakes is using it, and we've actually got a number of users across the country using PLL for building permits, such as Town of Cobourg and so on. So we'll be more than happy to provide you with a list following this webinar, and if required, we'll also provide customer contact as well for references. And it looks like we're at the end of our questions. So again, thank you for taking time out of your day and participating in today's webinar. So we'll be emailing you a recording of the webinar shortly, and also a PDF of the slides that you've seen today. Additionally, we'll post the webinar recording to our archive page when it's ready. So we also want to get your thoughts as well on the presentation. So fill out the survey that comes up when you exit webinar. And if you have, again, if we have questions here that we missed, we'll follow up with you shortly as well. Thank you very much, and have a great day.